Yo, what's good with it? Podcast. It's your boy Mac, you know what I'm saying? Your host of the show. And today we back and we're actually gonna be talking about something a little deep and a little bit uncomfortable again. And that's actually failure, bro. Failure is simply a part of life. You can't beat it, you can't outrun it. You're gonna fail at least every season of your life, at least once. And really, it's more than that. I'm just trying to be generous, but it's necessary. So let's dive into why failing isn't the end of the story, but the part that makes it worth telling. Okay, so first of all, let's be real. No one's waking up thinking, I can't wait to mess up today. I can't wait to fail. But failure, it's part of the process. No matter how careful, smart, or talented you are, you're going to stumble, you're going to fumble, and you're going to fail. And honestly, that's where the good stuff happens. I think about it like every major success story has started off with some type of failure, doubt, or fear. And if you don't believe me, bro, you can go look up like Mark Zuckerberg's, Steve Jobs, Elon Musk. I'm pretty sure Elon Musk started in his garage or something like that. Oprah Winfrey. Like there's so many stories out here of failure and turning it into success, and that's because failure is something you have to learn from. Failure inherently isn't bad. I think failure is learned to be bad from school because we take all these tests and we fail them. Or I'm not gonna say we, my dumb ass was. But you know, the one thing about failing tests is a lot of the times we actually got to retake them. And I think that's a accurate representation of kind of how life is. Like a lot of times you can redo stuff after you fail, and on the other times you can't. And the thing with after you fail those tests is you failed those tests to go back and learn more to retake the test. That's how I think you need to see it with life, bro. Life is just a big, long test that never ends until you die. And now I feel like that might be a crazy and obscene way of looking at it, but life is literally just a test from the day you were born until the day you get taken off this earth because you failed at almost everything before you learn it and you are able to apply it. But I think the reason failure hits so hard is because it challenges how we see ourselves and it makes us question our worth, our abilities, and sometimes our purpose. I've been there. I've told myself I wasn't good enough, that I didn't deserve success. And you know what? That self talk is the type of self talk that made the failure so heavy on me because it's like you're not allowing yourself to undergo the process of learning. Learning is literally failure. You don't get it at first and you're failing to understand until you finally understand it and you're able to apply it. And that application came from beforehand from the failures that you needed to do. Think about it in almost, you know what? Think about it this way. It's like when you trip in public, you can just get up and move on. But most of us replay that moment over and over, feeling embarrassed. That's how we treat failure. Like it's something to be ashamed of rather than just a misstep in our path forward. But what if we stopped seeing failure as the end and started seeing it as data? And I know this is some lame ass shit. This is a lame ass way to say this, but take it like this. Okay, that didn't work. What can I tweak? It's kind of like running a online store or just running a store in general. When something flops, you don't shut the whole thing down. You adjust, you test, you try again. Failure is feedback, not a final grade. And that's something I kind of wish that I knew more growing back or growing up because I used to think failure was just this big and terrible thing. But that's because I feel like we're literally conditioned from the moment that we get into school, we are conditioned to think that failure is this bad and terrible thing. But failure is good. Failure is needed in life because it teaches you. It is a teacher. Failure should not be bad in your mind. Failure should be a teach. And I know that a lot of people necessarily aren't in the predicament that they can fail in. And I can respect that. I can really respect that because, luckily for me, I'm in a blessed position where if I fail, I kind of have something to fall back on. And I know some people don't have that, but I think it's still important to realize that you have to learn from your failures. So here's what I want you to ask yourself. What are you scared to fail at and why? My fault. I don't know why I just struggled to read that. But yeah, what are you scared to fail at and why? What about failure is scaring you? Is it that everyone will see you fail, because if you fail, no one's gonna see you fail. And the way I think about it is this way: when I post a TikTok video or I post a podcast episode and it doesn't get the views I want, I used to get upset and embarrassed, and my ego would take a hit. But now I kind of take it as, okay, well, what time did I post? What time did I post those other TikToks that I did well? I reframe it and I rework it to work in my favor. And yeah, I failed. So now let me apply what went wrong and see if I can get it to go right. So I remember when this is the first time that I think I for real felt like a true failure. Um, it was my first year of college, and my first year of college was the 2020 year. Oh my gosh, I can't speak English. And that was COVID year. That was prime COVID. We was in deep COVID. And for some reason, that was also the year I went to college and decided to go on campus. I don't know why. But the way our classes were set up was we would have, I think it was like A group, B group, and C group were a lot of my classes. And you'd basically go every other week. Like A group would go one Tuesday, and then B would go Thursday, and then C would be the next Tuesday. And then A would come around again the next Thursday. And that's kind of how my schedule was for all my classes that year. But it was like, it was hard. It was my first year in college. I was seeing this whole new world. I was seeing a lot of women. I was seeing a whole lot of stuff that I was just enjoying looking at. And I wasn't locked in on the books. And I couldn't get locked in on the books because it was so hard due to like just the circumstances. Because going to class every week was not keeping me like enthralled in the books. But then I remember right before the second semester, so right before spring semester started, I get my grades back and I failed everything. I did not pass a single class, not one. And the next semester comes by again, and that same thing happens again. Except this semester, I had got broken up with, and it was just bad. And I think at this point, my GPA was like maybe a 2.2 or something like that. And I came into college with a 3.5, so it went down quick. And then the following semester, I actually failed again, and then I was put on academic probation. So the spring semester, I had to work my ass off to get off of academic probation, but I actually wasn't able to get off of academic probation. So then it felt like the whole world came crashing down on me, and I didn't know what to do. I had no idea what to do at all because I just felt like such a huge failure, and what I was doing wasn't working. And that's because I wasn't learning from the failures that I made beforehand. The failures that I made beforehand should have been a sign for me to be like, okay, you need to try something different because clearly what you're doing now is not working. And once I understood that, I kind of changed up my whole approach to school in general. Like, I just learned. I can't tell you anything specific, but I just learned from what wasn't working, and I tried something different until I found something that did work. And yeah, there was hella fails around upon that. There was fumbles, fails, stumbles, everything. It was not just one easy solution. No, I had to fail multiple times and continue teaching and learning what was right or what was going to help me succeed. And I think before you define a failure, you have to define what success is to you. Because there are some times where you fail and a failure could actually be a success. So I just think it's important to kind of define what success is and then define what failure is for yourself. So, how do you fail the right way? I'm going to tell you what worked for me. Feel it, but don't live there. It's okay to be upset. Just don't unpack and stay in that feeling, because if you stay in that feeling, you're going to be staying stuck. And you know what the one thing you can't do in this world is stay stuck. At the end of the day, the world is going to keep spinning. At the end of the day is going to end. And it's going to end with you in it or with you out of it. So you can't stay in that constant state of feeling it and living there. You have to move on. Number 2, reflect without judgment. Ask yourself what went wrong, but don't make it about your worth. The best way that I can explain this is we get a lot of our worth from outside validation, especially our parents, and when it comes to school and our grades. And I feel like you can't tie those two together because, first of all, a lot of people just aren't school people. They go to school to satisfy their parent or to satisfy whatever urge they feel is placed upon them. And that was kind of how it was with me because, like I said earlier, I'm blessed to be in the predicament I'm in. But a lot of the times I feel like I have to live up to this standard since my parents are so well off that I have to become well off. And whenever I would do bad in these things, I would judge myself and I would say, hey, you're never going to be them. You're never going to be successful. You're never going to be like them. And you know what? You're not. And that's okay because you have to find your own way. You have to be your own person. So you have to reflect on it without judging yourself too harshly. You have to realize that you are your own person with your own character who will find their own way in life, no matter how many times it takes and no matter how many times you fail. I used to feel like I was always going through something and I was always failing and there was just so much bogging down on me. But what helped me out a lot was something that I think that my dad said it to me. He said that every storm comes to ooh, okay, that was just not English. Excuse me. He said that every storm comes to an end. And in the long ones, you get to choose when you pull out your umbrella and when you don't. And what he meant by that is obviously every storm comes to an end. So whatever you're going through, and it might have been something that was happening for a long time, it's gonna come to an end. And for the umbrella reference, that means you pick and choose what you react to. You pick and choose what you react to, what you learn from, and what actually counts as a failure. Number three, adjust and try again. Simple as that. Literally as simple as that. Tweak your approach and then get back out there. The best example I can think of this is the one I used earlier when it comes to like high school, middle school, and elementary school. You fail a test, you get to retake it. You go to tutoring and you learn it over again, and then you retake it and you end up either doing better or you just ace that hoe. And that's how it is with life. You either fail and you learn, or you fail and you just get the best results possible. You know what I'm saying? It's very rare that you fail, you try to learn, and you end up back in the same spot. You might fail again, but I promise you, you'll fail further along the line than if you didn't learn. And I think the perfect predicament or the perfect explanation for this is literally my podcast. I've had this hoe for a year and some change. And last year, I would say was a failure because I didn't upload as much as I wanted. I didn't get the traffic that I wanted. But you know what? I learned a lot. I learned how to market myself on social media. I learned how to be more articulate with my words. I learned that I don't like putting myself under too much stress and duress because then things start to feel like a chore. And I think it's important that you just realize that you have to adjust to stuff and try again until you find something that works for you. 4, celebrate the small wins. Even if you're not where you want to be, you have to recognize progress. Once again, I'm going to draw it back into this podcast. I'm not where I want to be. I wish more people would listen to me. I wish more people knew about me, I guess. But at the same time, I have to celebrate those wins. When I get 50 listeners, that's a win. That's 50 people that listened to me, downloaded what I said, and liked what I said. Imagine you post on TikTok, right? Let's say you only get 200 views and you get 30 likes. That's not a great ratio, but 200 people saw what you had to say and 30 of them liked it. That's 30 people that they're not your friends. They're not in your area. These are 30 random people that liked what you were saying, and that's a win, and you should celebrate that. Number 5, surround yourself with the real ones. So real ones are just people who will hype you up, but also tell you the hard truths. And I'm trying to think of an example I want to use for this one. Okay. So I have a friend, and this friend always tells me that I'm a good talker, I'm fun to be around, and that they just enjoy being in my presence. But what this person also tells me is whenever I'm being lazy or I'm letting my own stresses get the best of me, they tell me those hard truths I need to hear. They tell me that I'm being lazy. They tell me that I'm focusing on something that I don't need to be focusing on. They're telling me that I'm doing something that I don't need to be doing. And it's important to surround yourself with people like that because those people will hold you accountable and tell you those hard truths that you need to hear in order for you to grow and succeed and move on further with your life. So failure isn't about who you are, it's about what you're doing, and both of those things can change. It's a process, not a verdict. Sometimes failure hits harder than usual. It feels like the storm won't end, and in these moments, like I said earlier, I remember something my dad told me. Every storm has to end. You can't control everything, but you can control how you weather the storm. One step at a time, one decision at a time. If you're feeling stuck in a cycle of failure, it's okay to pause, take a breath, and regroup. It's not quitting, it's recharging. And if you fail, it's not failing, it's learning. Y'all catching me? Y'all catching my drift? And let me be real for a second here. This podcast, it doesn't come together in one perfect take. I mess up a lot. I stumble over my words, lose my train of thought, or just don't like how something sounds, or shit, even how I look sometimes. And that's okay. Taking more than one take doesn't mean I failed. It means I care enough to get it right, and it's all a part of the process. So, yeah, you're going to fail probably more than once, but that doesn't mean you're missing something. It means you're right where you need to be. Thanks for tuning in to Missing on the Podcast. You know what I'm saying? That was a good way to end it. That was a great way to end it. But if you like this episode, hit the follow button, share it with a friend, share it with some family you feel like needs to hear this. Share it with anyone you feel like needs to hear this. And keep pushing forward, even when you fall. So until next time, I'm Mac, and this is Missing Something. Catch y'all soon, man.